Every day, organizations make thousands of decisions. Budgets are approved, people are hired, risks are accepted, strategies are changed, products are launched, and crises are managed. But behind all of those decisions lies a deceptively simple question: who should actually be making them? Governance and management work side by side, but they are not the same thing. And when the boundary between them becomes unclear, organizations can experience duplicated authority, weak accountability, slow decisions, frustrated executives, and boards that either know too little or interfere far too much. Governance asks, where should we go? What outcomes matter? What risks are acceptable? Who is accountable? Management asks, how do we get there? What resources do we need? Who does the work? How do we deliver the result? Yet the real distinction is more complicated than simply saying, the board governs and management manages. What happens when a board starts making operational decisions? What happens when management effectively determines strategy before the governing body has meaningfully challenged it? And in an age of AI, automation, instant dashboards, and increasingly complex organizations, where should the line be drawn? This is Get to Know: Governance versus Management. Today on Governancepedia, we're exploring one of the most important distinctions in organizational governance: who sets direction, who executes it, who monitors the outcome, and why successful organizations need both roles to work together without becoming the same thing. To understand governance versus management, we first need to understand why organizations separate these responsibilities at all. In a very small organization, the distinction may barely exist. Imagine a business owned and operated by one person. The owner decides the strategy, the owner approves spending, the owner performs the work, the owner monitors the results. Governance and management effectively sit in the same hands, but organizations become more complicated as they grow. Ownership may become separated from day-to-day control. Investors provide capital, boards oversee organizations, executives lead operations, employees execute processes, regulators impose obligations. Customers, communities, and other stakeholders may also be affected by organizational decisions. Suddenly, one person cannot realistically perform every role. This creates a fundamental organizational challenge. How do you delegate authority without losing accountability? That question sits near the heart of modern governance. Governance structures developed in many different institutional forms over time, so there is no single historical moment when governance suddenly appeared. But the underlying problem is ancient. Someone has authority. Someone exercises authority. And some mechanism is needed to determine whether that authority is being exercised appropriately. Modern corporate governance strengthened this distinction considerably. Boards became central mechanisms through which organizations could provide direction, supervise executive leadership, and protect organizational interests without personally operating every process. Management, meanwhile, became increasingly professionalized. Large organizations developed specialist executives responsible for finance, operations, technology, legal affairs, human resources, risk, sales, and many other functions. The result was an increasingly important separation. Governance provides direction and oversight. Management organizes execution, but separation does not mean isolation, and that distinction will become critical throughout this episode. Governance does not exist above an organization as some detached administrative layer, and management does not operate independently beneath it. They form interconnected parts of the same organizational system. Consider a typical organization. There may be shareholders or other owners, a board or equivalent governing body, board committees, a chief executive, executive management, business units, risk and compliance functions, internal audit, external auditors, regulators, employees, customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. Each sees the organization from a different perspective. The governing body must often look across the entire organization. Management usually works much closer to execution. That difference creates something extremely important: different information perspectives. Management may know far more about daily operations. The governing body may have greater distance from those operations. That distance can be valuable. It creates room for independent challenge. But distance also creates risk. A board that receives poor information may believe it is exercising effective oversight while seeing only a carefully filtered version of reality. Management faces the opposite danger. Executives immersed in daily operations may become so focused on immediate performance that longer-term strategic risks receive insufficient attention. Effective governance therefore creates a structured relationship between direction, execution, information, challenge, accountability. And increasingly, organizations must maintain this relationship while confronting cybersecurity, AI, geopolitical uncertainty, regulatory change, sustainability expectations, third-party dependency, and rapidly changing business models. That makes the distinction between governance and management more important, not less, because complexity increases the temptation for governance bodies to become operational. At the same time, complexity can cause boards to become excessively dependent on management for the information needed to govern. The strategic challenge is therefore not merely separating the two, it is creating the right relationship between them. At its core, governance concerns the system through which an organization is directed, overseen, and held accountable. Management concerns organizing people, resources, and activities to achieve organizational objectives. A useful way to understand the distinction is through 5 questions. Question 1. What are we trying to achieve? Governance establishes or approves strategic direction. It asks, what is our purpose? What outcomes are we pursuing? What strategic priorities matter? What principles should guide major decisions? Management converts that direction into executable plans. It asks, what projects are required? What resources are needed? What sequence makes sense? Who will deliver each objective? Governance determines the destination and strategic boundaries. Management develops much of the route. Question 2. How much risk will we accept? Every strategy involves uncertainty. Governance therefore has an important role in understanding the organization's significant risks and determining the boundaries within which management may operate. Management identifies, assesses, and manages risks within those boundaries. Governance should not ordinarily design every operational control. Management should not independently redefine fundamental risk boundaries simply because doing so makes execution easier. Question 3. Who has authority? This is where governance becomes tangible. Strong organizations define decision rights. Some decisions are reserved for the governing body. Others are delegated. A board might reserve authority over matters such as major acquisitions, appointment of the chief executive, fundamental strategy, or exceptionally large capital commitments. Management may receive authority over thousands of operational decisions beneath defined thresholds. Delegation, therefore, does not remove governance. Good delegation is itself a governance mechanism. The critical questions are, what has been delegated, to whom, within what limits, under what conditions, and when must the issue return upward? Question 4. How do we know whether it is working? Governance requires information. Management produces much of that information. This creates an important tension. The people executing the strategy are often also responsible for reporting how successfully the strategy is being executed. Effective governance, therefore, requires more than receiving reports. It requires challenge. Are the metrics appropriate? What is missing? What assumptions sit behind the numbers? Are exceptions being normalized? Are trends deteriorating? Does independent assurance support management's assessment? A dashboard is not governance. A committee meeting is not governance. A board pack is not governance. They are tools through which governance may occur. Question 5. Who is accountable? Perhaps the most important question. Governance should establish clear accountability. Management should operate within that framework and demonstrate performance against agreed objectives. The relationship can therefore be summarized as governance, direction, delegation, oversight, challenge, accountability. Management, planning, resourcing, execution, monitoring, reporting. Neither sequence works properly without the other. Understanding the theory is important, but governance versus management becomes much clearer when a difficult decision appears. Imagine Northbridge Technologies, a fictional international technology company. Management proposes entering a rapidly growing overseas market. The opportunity could significantly increase revenue. but the country presents political, regulatory, cybersecurity, and third-party risks. Management develops the proposal. It assesses potential customers, creates financial forecasts, evaluates suppliers, reviews staffing, develops implementation plans, and proposes risk controls. Now the proposal reaches the board. What should the board do? Should directors select the local office, negotiate supplier contracts, choose the cybersecurity software, interview operational managers? Normally, no. Those are management activities. The board's questions should operate at a different level. Does this support our strategy? Do we understand the downside? Is the expected return appropriate for the risk? What assumptions could cause this proposal to fail? Do we have the organizational capability to execute it? What would cause us to exit? How will success be measured? What information will the board receive? The board may approve the strategic decision while requiring defined reporting, risk thresholds, or escalation triggers. Management then executes. 6 months later, customer growth looks excellent. But regulatory delays are increasing, cybersecurity incidents are rising, staff turnover is significantly above forecast. Revenue alone might suggest success. Governance asks whether the total outcome remains acceptable. That is strategic oversight. The opposite failure. Now imagine directors become nervous. They begin requesting weekly operational calls. One director contacts department managers directly. Another starts instructing the project team. A committee begins approving routine suppliers. Soon employees no longer know whose instructions take priority. The CEO remains formally accountable, but no longer has meaningful authority. This is one of the dangers of governance drifting into management. The opposite is equally dangerous. Management may provide the board with highly curated information, frame strategic alternatives too narrowly, or treat board approval as a procedural formality. Then management effectively governs while the board merely endorses. Healthy governance requires neither extreme, it requires constructive tension. Governance versus management sounds straightforward. In practice, several myths make the distinction surprisingly difficult. Myth 1. Governance is strategic, management is operational. Useful? Yes. Complete? No. Management contributes heavily to strategy. Executives possess knowledge the board needs when evaluating strategic choices. The important distinction concerns authority, accountability, and role, not whether management is allowed to think strategically. Myth 2. Boards should never become involved in operations. Usually, boards should avoid managing normal operations, but extraordinary circumstances can alter the level of appropriate oversight. A severe crisis, major regulatory intervention, CEO transition, or existential threat may justify much more intensive board involvement. The critical issue is maintaining clarity about whether the board is overseeing management or temporarily performing activities normally delegated elsewhere. Myth 3. More board involvement means stronger governance. Not necessarily. Too little challenge creates weak governance. But excessive intervention can also weaken governance by undermining executive accountability. If directors routinely make management decisions, who is accountable when those decisions fail? Good governance does not maximize board involvement, it optimizes it. Myth 4. Management reports tell the board everything it needs to know. Reports are necessary, but effective oversight requires judgment. Boards should understand reporting methodology, assumptions, thresholds, trends, and blind spots. Sometimes the most important governance question is, what are we not seeing? Governancepedia, fact or fiction? A board that becomes more involved in day-to-day management will always improve organizational accountability. Fact or fiction? Think carefully. We'll leave that one with you for a moment, because greater involvement can appear to strengthen control while actually making accountability less clear. And that leads to an important debate. How close should a governing body be to management? Some organizations emphasize board independence and distance. Others encourage deeper engagement with executives and the wider organization. Neither model automatically guarantees better governance. The appropriate balance depends on organizational complexity, ownership, regulation, risk, leadership capability, and circumstances. Independence without knowledge can produce superficial oversight. Engagement without boundaries can produce interference. Effective governance needs both. enough distance to challenge, enough understanding to challenge intelligently. Governance and management are therefore not competitors. One should not replace the other. They operate at different but interconnected levels. Consider a major technology transformation. Governance asks, why are we doing this? How does it support strategy? What risks could materially affect the organization? What investment are we prepared to authorize? What outcomes define success? Management asks, which platform should we implement? Who will lead the project? How will data be migrated? What training is required? How will the implementation schedule work? And what operational problems must be solved? Now consider cybersecurity. Governance should oversee whether cyber risk is understood and managed within acceptable boundaries. Management develops and operates the actual security environment. Or consider organizational culture. Governance should understand whether culture supports the organization's purpose, values, and risk expectations. Management influences that culture every day through hiring, incentives, communication, leadership, and operational behavior. The strongest organizations create a clear governance management interface. Reserved matters, delegated authorities, escalation thresholds, reporting expectations, committee responsibilities, decision protocols, performance measures, and assurance mechanisms, because ambiguity at the boundary eventually becomes ambiguity in accountability. Governance and management have already changed significantly, but artificial intelligence may challenge the distinction in entirely new ways. Imagine an organization where AI systems continuously analyze performance, predict emerging risks, recommend strategic alternatives, allocate resources, monitor controls, identify anomalies, and automatically execute certain operational decisions. The question will no longer be simply governance versus management. It may increasingly become human governance, human management, and machine-supported decision-making. Suppose an AI system recommends closing an underperforming business division. Management accepts the recommendation. The board approves the restructuring. Later, serious problems emerge. Who was accountable? The algorithm, the executives, the board, the vendor? Technology may participate in decision processes, but accountability cannot simply disappear into the technology. That is why AI governance is becoming strategically important. Organizations will increasingly need clarity around who owns an AI-enabled decision, who can override automated recommendations, which decisions can be automated, which require human approval, how are models challenged, how are biases, errors, and unintended consequences identified, what evidence should reach the governing body. AI could also strengthen governance. Boards may gain access to faster information, predictive indicators, automated exception reporting, and deeper analysis. But more information does not automatically create better oversight. A board receiving 10,000 AI-generated indicators may actually understand less than a board receiving 10 carefully designed strategic signals. Technology changes the tools. It does not eliminate the fundamental governance questions. Who has authority? Who makes the decision? Who monitors the outcome? Who challenges the assumptions? Who is accountable? Those questions are likely to remain central regardless of how sophisticated organizations become. Today, we discovered that governance and management are deeply connected, but fundamentally different. Governance establishes direction, decision boundaries, oversight, and accountability. Management translates strategic direction into action through planning, resources, execution, and operational control. We learned that delegation does not eliminate governance. Effective delegation is part of governance. We explored why boards need enough information to understand the organization without becoming another layer of management. And we saw why management needs sufficient authority to deliver the outcomes for which it is being held accountable. Perhaps most importantly, the goal is not to build an impenetrable wall between governance and management. The goal is to create a clear, disciplined, and productive interface. Governance without management produces direction without delivery. Management without governance can produce activity without sufficient direction, challenge, or accountability. But when both work effectively, governance asks the right questions. Management delivers the right actions. Information connects the two. Challenge tests assumptions, and accountability remains visible from decision to outcome. That is the strategic power of effective governance. But governance versus management is only one part of the wider governance landscape. In another Governancepedia episode, we'll explore an equally important question: what makes a board truly effective? Because having a board is easy. Creating one capable of effective strategic oversight is something very different. If you found this episode valuable, like the video, subscribe to Governancepedia, and share your perspective in the comments. Where should the boundary between governance and management be drawn? And have you ever seen that boundary fail? Continue exploring governance principles, oversight concepts, and practical governance knowledge at governancepedia.com. Thank you for watching Governancepedia, part of the MP Nerds ecosystem. Understand governance, strengthen oversight, make better decisions.